You're here.
I am here. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. We are excited to hear your story, chat with you, and obviously let you just share the journey. So, share your name. Where do you live? And what school are you going to this fall?
Ooh, pressure. All right. My name is Cooper Sadler. I currently live in Westport, Connecticut, and I'm so excited to announce that I will be going to NYU Tisch School of the Arts, class of 2028.
Amazing. Let's go. Let's go.
So that's
Cooper is outstanding actor, really multi-talented, really great sense of artistry and playfulness. Even, definitely when I met you, but you definitely applied all of that while we were working together. Just so happy for you, man. So let's
thank
start
you.
from well, where should we start from? Like, when was the inspiration? When did you decide I'm going to college for drama?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an actor, very early on because, my parents are in the creative business, so I've sort of had, um, or at least I've been able to be immersed in that world, like in real time from a young age. So I've grown up with it, and I've grown up with actors and writers and creatives, and I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. I love this. So naturally, I started doing theater in school. And, that transitioned very quickly into high school. And then I realized this is something that I really want to do professionally. So, of course, I started like looking into colleges, different options, different areas. I love New York. So, New York was big for me, which worked out great. But
Yes.
so I knew very early on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. We haven't mentioned the the parent situation, but you have two parents in the industry, one of
Yeah.
which is a Juilliard grad. So I'm
Yes.
just thinking to myself, well, yeah, it's just kind of been on your radar your whole life, probably,
Hmm. Mhm.
somewhat.
It's always been something that I've really, really wanted to do. And they've always inspired me and influenced me and been very supportive too. So it's
Yeah,
great.
they are. They're fantastic. I
Mm.
love them.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's get a little creative right off the bat. Okay, give me three words to describe your drama school preparation journey.
Um, I mean, one thing I have to say is like journey. It's a process. That's one thing. Process, first up. Um, Spontaneous would be another. And difficult. It's hard, but it's so rewarding at the end of the day. It
Nice.
really is. That's what makes it even more special. So,
Absolutely. No, it's always special when you really go on a journey and you kind of deal with the intensity of everything
yeah.
and you don't run from it and all that stuff. And everybody's in a unique place. But
Mm.
yeah, I think everyone who gets into a top school would tell you that, there's it's never just a straight line right into the school.
Right. Right.
So talk to us a little bit about yours. What stands out for you as kind of, let's say, if you can think of maybe your highest high,
Mm.
besides of course getting the notice, the acceptance,
Yeah.
throughout the process of preparing, highest high, lowest low.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think highest high would have to be when the monologues, specifically when two monologues, Puck and Jim, when those clicked for me, everything else unfolded in a way where I actually believed that I was going to do this. Because for a very long time, I was doing these monologues and I was working on them, and I was thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Like, this is not like this has got to be like another high school show, right? And then you work and you work and you work, and eventually you try so many different things, and something eventually clicks into place. And when that happened for me, for specifically Jim, which is a monologue I did, Jim Quinn from Prodigal Son, and then Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream, when I finally got it, I immediately was like, oh, I know that I'm gonna be okay, and I know that this, no matter what happens from here, I will end up where I need to be. So that's when it finally started to shift into place. So definitely
Great.
those
Before,
guys.
yeah, great, great, great. Before you go into your lowest low, I want to just dig in a little bit on what you said about feeling like you got it,
Mm,
because that could be misconstrued by some of the listeners.
yeah.
Um, I know what you mean because obviously I was there in the room during
Yeah.
certain moments of getting it. But can you expand on that a little bit? Like, what do you mean by got it? Like,
Yeah.
how do you mean that it clicked for you? What do you think was different?
Um, well, for me, some thing that I do have trouble with, something that I'm obviously I'm constantly trying to hurdle is not getting in my head and not overthinking and not second guessing myself and my choices. So what would happen a lot of the time is I would be working and I would be trying to decode or analyze the monologue. I'd be breaking it down beat by beat, and then I would do it and I wasn't in it, and I knew that I wasn't in it, and that made me even more like not in it, and then I get in my head more, and it would just be like this layered thing where it's like I am never gonna get this, everything's going wrong. But eventually at a certain point you just have to accept the fact that you know you're gonna have to do it, so why not have that opportunity be now? So you breathe and then you let yourself just sit in it, and when you take a moment to think about the character and who you're talking to and what's around you, your senses, the circumstances of the scene, but more importantly the play, and you take your focus off of yourself, that's what got it means to me.
That's fantastic. Beautiful. Well articulated.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I definitely resonate with that and really great moments in our sessions with all of your pieces. I loved all of your pieces. The
I
pieces
love
you chose
them.
and everything like that. I want to talk about those in a second, but I want to
Yeah.
at least let you share the lowest low if you can remember something that
Yeah.
out.
One thing that absolutely stands out to me is Puck, because I put Puck, I think more than any other monologue, I put Puck on a huge pedestal for a few reasons. One, because that was the monologue that my dad did, for his
Oh,
Juilliard
I didn't
audition.
know that. I don't think I
Yeah,
knew that.
yeah, he did the same exact monologue, and I wasn't trying to obviously copy his interpretation, or I wasn't trying to, mimic anything, but that was really, really, that was huge for me. So I wanted to do right by it. So I would treat it with so much, I would treat all of my monologues with value, obviously, but I would treat that one with so much more because I thought it was such a precious thing. When in reality, Puck isn't all that precious. He's dirty, he's low to the ground, he's playful, right? And um I don't know, I would try different things. I would try sort of like obviously understanding the text and then trying to use movement to influence the way I deliver the monologue, or I would try to just do it standing still, or I would try to, I don't know, like pick out specific moments and do specific actions or motions that worked. And then I was treating it with so much, like I was praising it so much to the point where I forgot the reason why I loved it in the first place. And the reason why I loved it in the first place is because it's such a fun character. And I wasn't having fun with it for a really long time. And I remember even moments going into the room for like Carnegie Mellon, I was like, I don't know if I have this. I really hope, like, I really want to make sure that I've got this, and I really want to do well with this. And you go into the room, and all of a sudden, all of that goes away, and finally, it clicked. So that was definitely something. It was the low. That was
Sounds like a
definitely
slog.
yeah, yeah,
It can be that way. Some people call it the dark cloud.
yeah.
You'll get through it, but you're not gonna get
You-
around it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, sometimes it feels like giving up sometimes, and some people do. Some people let their monologues go at a certain point, but you have to kinda trust yourself and listen to your own instincts, which obviously you did. Alright, so now let's talk about the monologues. What
yeah.
monologues did you have?
Yeah. So I had four. I had Jim Quinn from Prodigal Son. I had Flacco from Den of Thieves. Or sorry, Prodigal Son was from as John Patrick Shanley. Then I had Flacco from Den of Thieves by Stephen Adly Gurgis. Then I had my two Shakespeare pieces, which were Prince Hal and Puck. So
Nice.
yeah.
And, did you ever how long ago did you find those? Let's say if you auditioned in the January, February timeframe, how long previous to the auditions did you actually have those monologues and start memorizing them?
I would say I found Puck, I already knew that I wanted to do Puck. Like that was without a
Like
question.
when you turned 6 years old.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I was 11 or 12. I was like, I auditioned for Juilliard and I'm doing Puck. And I was like later on, I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but then like, oh, I really am doing Puck. Oh, cool. So I knew that one super early on, and then after that, I would have to say would be Gym. I found Gym like it was like mid to late August is when I found Gym.
Cool.
Uh, because I didn't even know what the play was, and I was searching for monologues. I was going to drama bookstore, but I just remember like scrolling on Instagram one day, and this video of Timothy Chalamet doing the monologue popped up on my page. But what stood out to me was the writing, and I was like, "Ooh, what's this?" And I typed in like a few lines of the text, and then it popped up. I was like, "Well, let me read this." So that's how I found that. And then Flacco, I think you suggested Flacco actually a few months later because I was playing around with like I know like This Is Our Youth was one that I was gonna do
Oh,
that I was
right.
thinking
Right,
of
right, right.
but I was reading it and we were trying to work on it, but I wasn't really connecting to the character too much. I wasn't really it didn't feel great trying to do it. So then I was like, all right, you know what? Before we get into this and then we decide not to do it, let me just try to see if there are other options before I use This Is Our Youth. So then that's when I think you suggested Flacco. You suggested Den of Thieves, and I was like, great, I'll read it. And I did, and I saw Flacco, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. Yeah, 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 yeah. So that was probably like I don't know 2-ish months after Prodigal Son, and then so that by that point I had three, and then How initially I believe I was gonna do Edgar from King Lear is the monologue that I was going to do. I was gonna do one of his monologues, but I kind of the same situation as This Is Our Youth. Didn't really connect to it. Wasn't really feeling it. So then Hal came along, and I was like, oh, I like this a lot better. So then I read, I watched versions of the play, looked into the character, and I was like, yeah, this works well for me. So
Dude,
that
I
was
love
probably
all that. I love so many things you said I want to comment on.
yeah,
So, one is that one of the ways you found your pieces
mm,
was, watching performances.
yeah,
And that's always good for everyone watching and listening to this. Watch plays. I know
watch,
it sounds simple, but hey, you have so many resources online to watch plays. If you live in a city with a decent theater, go
mm,
watch plays. You never know what's going to connect with you. You never know what's going to inspire you. And
right,
it just kind of creates this sense of theatricality in you, which you can obviously then transfer when you work on
yeah,
plays. So watch plays.
yeah,
So it's cool that you did that, but you didn't tip into the danger territory of imitating those performances.
yeah,
You did not tip into the danger territory of trying to copy those. It's much more about, wow, like you said, I kind of noticed the writing.
mm,
Timothy Chalamet's performance, okay, it's good. Whether you like it or not, you're noticing the writing that, oh, this resonates with me. Let me
yeah,
see. And you just Googled it, you were able to find it, or if you go to a library or whatever. Um, and then you make your decision. You don't
yeah,
make your decision because, oh, that performer does it so well. I'm definitely going to do this monologue. You need to read the play to find out if you actually connect with it. Sometimes performers are so good that what seems so easy on the outside is actually the result of a lot of nuanced, rich technique that you
mm,
can't see.
no,
And their own process to get there is invisible to you. So don't just take someone's performance as reading a monologue. No, you
yeah.
need to go read the text. And obviously that's what you did to judge whether or not it was for you. So that's one thing I acknowledge you for.
Sorry, and I just wanted to comment on that too. You said something interesting also is that there was, when I was working on Jim, of course, immediately it was the writing that got me about it. But I had taken like a break from it for a period of time to do this theater show that I was doing at school, and then when I had come back to it, there were times where so easily I would watch that performance, and watching that performance for me was so like it was not doing me any favors because then I felt like I was trying to compete with Timothy Chalamet's performance. And that was another example of him getting in my head. So, like, for anyone listening or watching, it never works. it never works. Like, and you have to trust that you are good enough.
I was gonna say, plus they don't want to see your imitation of
No.
anyone else. They want to see your voice, your spirit, your humanity, what you inherently understand about the complexities of what this character is going through.
Yeah.
And no one else can hold a candle to you if you're actually channeling that.
Mhm.
Great point. Um, and the other thing I was gonna acknowledge you for about the pieces was um oh, your sensitivity to whether or not you connected with it. You
Mhm.
didn't just take my advice. You're like, "Oh, yeah, Anthony's recommending Den of Thieves.
Yeah.
I really like this," if you really didn't like it.
Mhm.
Like, you actually were listening to yourself above all. Do I connect with this? Am I feeling excited about working on this material? And I think that's always the best, course of action because that the panelists can sniff that passion.
Yeah.
They can tell if you've chosen pieces that you enjoy working on or if, you kind of feel obligated to work on these pieces or there's a little bit of tension there if
Mhm.
you're feeling like I didn't really choose this. Someone else kind you know?
Right.
So you ultimately made the decision just using your different resources like myself or YouTube, whatever. So yeah, that's awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, good. So you're working on your pieces. We're getting coaching. How did you come across? I actually don't remember at this moment how you came across us, but like, were you shopping with other coaches? How did you determine to work with us?
Um, yeah, well, actually, I remember we were recommended. I believe we
Oh,
were
that's right.
recommended by a family friend of ours who is currently their daughter is in college, and they recommended you and your company and everything. And we were like, oh, this could be really, really good. Like, and at the time, I was thinking like a few sessions couldn't hurt, you know. And then we, as a family, started to look into the program and the options and the classes and everything, and even after the first meeting, I could tell that I wanted to link and work with people who were so passionate about helping kids like me trying to go to school for this because I feel like often they are like, I don't know why, but I was so worried that when I was trying to find coaching and help that everyone would be like this just completely stone cold British like Patrick Stewart, completely like very distant, and at a certain point you realize that they are there for you, like you were there for me always, and that was something that really 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 helped me even after the first meeting. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. I'll take the compliment. Yes. No, we had such a fun time together, and it's always best when you, the student, is excited as hell. I mean,
Mm,
you were always excited to find new layers, take adjustments, just
yeah.
pour your imagination into the room and, it's like, "Oh, there's so much to play with here." I'm
Mhm.
not having to pull teeth all the way, you know what I'm saying? It's more like, "Okay, he's putting something out into the room, let's play with that." And you could just tell that you have great artistic energy, and we haven't even mentioned that you have this hip hop, dance background, like, can you expand a little bit on some of your other skills that
Yes.
you've developed?
Yeah, I am a dancer. I've been taking hip hop was my first love. Like I've been taking hip hop and dance classes since the age of 5. I started with breakdancing and then I soon transitioned into like different, like I branched down to more like street styles. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And that's always been something that has like not only helped me, like that has influenced my characters before. That really helped, influence Puck, my version of Puck. And you know um I always really 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 just it was a way for me to cope. It's just the way I can put it simply is like if dancing was a way for me to just release all of my energy, all of my emotions, no matter what those would be. So
That's amazing. Yeah, very cool. And obviously, I've always encouraged you to continue to nurture that. You chose to go to school for acting, but that doesn't mean you get the dancing, everything still continues to develop in
yeah,
its own way. All right, cool. So let's talk auditions.
let's do it.
We're riding into the audition room. How
Yeah.
many schools did you audition for? Can you kind of run down the list, or do you just have like a general number? How many
Yeah.
schools?
Well, I there were a few that I did pre-screen auditions for. Those were DePaul, Ithaca, Pace, and then BU and Carnegie Mellon. So there were five. And then in person, it was Carnegie Mellon, BU, Pace, NYU, UNCSA. I'm blanking. There were like 10, 11 schools, probably.
Yeah, great number.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, so um what was your like did you have a strategy when you like booked your schools like, oh, I want to do this one first, this one last? Did that matter to you? What was your considerations kind of scheduling those, if any?
Yeah, I mean, with scheduling the auditions, you mean like when I did them?
Mhm.
Um,
Or
yeah,
if you have any advice, if not, whatever. I just sometimes people are wondering, should I which one should I do first, last? Is it even a consideration? I just want to get your thoughts.
well, one thing that I'm grateful for because initially, oh, Marymount Manhattan, that was another school I auditioned for, and actually to kind of jump off of that point is initially NYU was my first audition, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit because I was like, oh no, like I don't want to blow this because I want to go to this school really bad. Um, but then when I scheduled Marymount Manhattan, I found that there was a time earlier. There was like it was like a few, like it was a week earlier than my NYU audition. I was like, book, like that's perfect because um, I really like Marymount. They're a great school and I love their program. Everything really just fit, but for me, NYU was just like the golden chalice, right? So it was nice to have Marymount because they were so welcoming and they were so kind and just inclusive and they were really the best, and they were a really good first audition experience because they gave you notes, but they didn't dig on your performance. They critiqued you without criticizing you, and it was like it was a great way to sort of like dip your toe in before plunging down to the deep end, which was
Yeah, yeah. All right, so you're in the water, right? You've done
yeah.
your Marymount. You're kind of off to the races.
Mhm.
How was your experience? Like, um, did you? I guess what I want to know is how spread out were all these auditions? Like from the
Yeah.
first audition to the last, was it like a month? Was it a week? Like, how intense was that timeline?
Yeah, I mean, it was about in total, I'd say it was a month, spread out, like maybe a little bit over a month. I'd say that I had, there were a few auditions that I had that were like back to back to back. Like I remember I had BU and UNCSA on the same day, and I had to go like right from Ripley Greer like to the school. And then I had like the day after that was like Carnegie Mellon, right? So there were like schools where it's like you have a weekend and you're doing four auditions that weekend, But then there were other instances where like I had Marymount, and then I had a week, and then I had NYU,
Mhm.
I had 2 weeks even to brush up, and then I would go back in. So it was all very scattered, but
Yeah.
mostly pretty close together.
And how were you feeling about your pieces going in? Did you
Mm.
I know you were kind of saying I don't want to blow it, or whatever, but like as far as the quality of the work, you had gone through all these, like you said, this journey, right? Ups and downs and high moments and low moments. And then did you feel what was your feelings kind of entering in? About
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a beauty to that. You mentioned the journey, and at a certain point, you just have to trust that you know it. That's really it because it was hard for me to second guess myself when I knew deep down that okay, the reality is we can say whatever we want, we can doubt ourselves, whatever, right? Boom. But the reality is I've been working on these pieces for about 6 months, trying different things, experimenting, not feeling good about it, feeling great about it, having a lull, and then going back, right? And it was like for me that was so important because it that I would not have the characters that I had, you know, without that. If I didn't have the low moments, I wouldn't have found the highs. And I think that, especially with characters like Jim, Jim is a character that has his own process and his own journey. And one big thing for him is his teacher, his principal, at the school that he's attending. He is basically, in simple terms, he is telling off this person and landing his words on him and saying, how you hurt me, right? And, for me, That was something I kind of struggled with towards the beginning, is because I've had experiences similar to that, and being vulnerable to that and opening up yourself to that, could be really hard at first, because you're almost picking at this scab that just closed, you know. But when I learned to do that, learned to trust the process. I realized that it was Jim's process just as much as it was my own. It was both of our journeys, and then eventually they just aligned, And that's
Okay. All
you know,
right. Now we're talking. You know what
yes,
I love? I love that you mentioned that specifically about that monologue because you did do it so well. You found so many personal ways in, and yet for everyone listening, uh, almost everybody knows that monologue. It resonates with a lot of young actors, and a lot of them do it for drama school auditions. You
yeah.
could consider that probably one of the top three overdone contemporary monologues for men in today's, and I know we coach a lot of people. It's like we
Yeah.
see Jim all the time. Jim
Yeah.
is by far the most overdone for men, and Biff for Death of a Salesman.
Hmm.
So everyone listening, here we go. Another person doing gym and getting into a top school. It's not about the monologue, right? It's about your relationship to the monologue and your ability to own it.
It is.
Everybody's seen Hal.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen, the pieces I did from Shakespeare. Shakespeare, obviously, it's a fixed amount of material. So
Yeah.
there's only so much to discover. You're not finding
Yeah.
any new stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're working with sophisticated teachers who have been around the block, they've all seen every Shakespeare piece. So
Yeah.
it's more about how do I get into this?
Right.
And you are talking about the way you got into it and you were fearless. You might have felt the fear, but you move forward anyway
Yeah. You
and
can't give up.
willing. So
Yeah.
that's really great. That's really great. So you're kind of going in going like, "Hey, I put in the work. Let's just do this. Let's just trust the work," right?
Yeah. I've been with it too long to give up on it now, pretty much.
Great. Yeah, I love that. Point of no return. Just like commit fully, which you always did, and just like, "Hey, the result is what it is."
What it
Uh
is. Yeah.
and you did I want to ask about your confidence level. Like be honest. Because I had no clue going in, right? If I was going to get into a school, I didn't know how competitive it was. I knew the acceptance rates were ridiculous, but I didn't know where I stood in the balance.
Mhm.
Did you have a sense that you'd get in somewhere, or were you like, this may fall off the rails? Like, how secure were you in the sort of outcome that you wanted?
Yeah, it was different for every single school. Marymount, I was a little unsure at first because that was my first audition. Of course, I'm psyching myself out a little bit, but I trusted it. I went in and I got a few adjustments, a few notes, and I felt really, really good about what I did. So I was like, okay, you know what? This could absolutely be an option, and then it was, which is fantastic. And then there are schools you know, like Juilliard that I auditioned for, where I was like, okay, the line is going out the building to audition for this school, and
Right.
it's crazy, and it's like, okay, the reality is this could be a slim chance, but it also could not be. And I'm just going to take this experience for what it is and not try to predict what happens. And whatever the outcome is, whatever. If I don't get a callback, whatever. It really, for me, it was just about sort of like going in with a positive attitude, and whatever happens, happens. That's no reflection on who I am and what I'm able to do. Because the reality is that school, if they don't accept a lot of people, they could very well have another Cooper. They could have someone who's very, who's very agile and gifted, in a physical sense, and is kind of doing similar pieces, but at the same time, you have to realize that you are worthy, you're your own person, and that you will end up where you need to end up. So,
That's so wise, so wise. And it's very true. I mean, I can tell you from my journey, from my friends, obviously all the students we've helped, it's like if you just give yourself to this process in good faith, like what you
yeah,
did, you committed to it, you really got a lot of coaching sessions, you poured yourself into it.
yeah,
Even, in between sessions, I was impressed and excited about how you were rehearsing on your own and using every resource you could. You took advantage of everything you possibly could. you're definitely going to end up wherever there's only so much we can understand and control about our existence, right? Or our
Yeah.
future, our destiny. But if we just give it our best, you're going to be surprised at how perfectly it ends up, even if it's not what you initially thought. So very, very true.
And
I'm
at the end of the day,
so
it's a drama school. You're going to school for something you love. So wherever you are, not to interrupt you, sorry, but wherever
yeah,
you are, remember that you are doing what you love. You're following through with your passion no matter where you are. So that's what's
exactly.
important. So
All right, so in the rooms, I want to know because we had worked together. Obviously, when we work with you, we throw adjustments at you just like they do in the auditions. We work. We know what happens in the room, so we work together that way,
yeah,
right? What happened in the rooms? Like, can you
yeah.
think of a particular moment, whether it was NYU or any other moment that was just like super freeing or super just
Yeah.
what rose your emotions? What happened in some of these rooms?
I mean, funny enough, I remember when I was at the beginning of this process and I had first found like how to get into drama school and I was watching some of these videos and everyone was talking about like as soon as you enter, they're super approachable, like they're not intimidating at all. I'm watching on my iPhone, I'm like, yeah, that's not true. And then I would like scroll back and then when I was doing it, I was like, oh wow, that's actually true. It's like um and obviously, there are some schools that are more intimidating because of their reputation, or because they accept so few people, or they're just, in general, a very rigorous program, right? But I remember like NYU was so welcoming and so kind, and I think that was probably my best audition because as soon as I entered the room, it's one person that is your proctor essentially who assesses your audition, and it feels much more personal that way. You feel like you could be a little bit more vulnerable in that sense. And I remember she was just the nicest woman who was so looking forward to talk to me afterwards about my pieces, about what I like doing in school, my passions, all of it. And it didn't feel like an audition at a certain point. It just felt like a conversation, which was really, really cool. It didn't feel like an interview even. And even when I was auditioning, I just felt so comfortable because I just sort of fallen into it, going back to trusting the process. And then there are other schools like I remember UNCSA, North Carolina School of the Arts. And I remember the day of, they gave this huge sort of like orientation info session about sort of the school, their goals, who they want to turn out as students, how many people they accept, like everything, right? And I remember towards the end, they said, they said, so you're gonna go in, you're gonna step on the like red line, and you're gonna perform a classical piece and a contemporary piece. And I just looked over to my mom because I didn't know that I needed to do a classical piece. I didn't like for some reason I just assumed two contemporary pieces, which for those of you auditioning for UNCSA, they want a classical, so don't make that mistake. But so that kind of psyched me out for a second. It was like, I don't know. I thought I had already done this. I didn't think I needed to do any more classical pieces. But then I realized, oh, this is just another opportunity to live it and to just have fun with Puck, right? Because that's the piece that I went in with, and obviously afterwards, it was a good audition. But afterwards, when we were talking, they felt almost blocked, and it's completely valid, but almost blocked off in the sense that they didn't want to get too friendly with the applicants, to sort of like they didn't want to basically make the applicants assume like, okay, they really like me, I'm probably going to get in. So they in that way they were very much like poker face type, and it's completely fine, but I really enjoyed the schools that were like they felt like people and they were just talking with you, and it just, yeah, at a certain point it just felt supernatural and real and not scary at all.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. It's that's exactly why it's important to have a good fit, right?
Yeah,
It's not just, oh, there's a blanket list of the best school, the second best school. No, it's art, man. Like how you relate, and especially it's not even just a professional gig that you're auditioning for. You're auditioning for a relationship with this training institution.
yeah.
So, like, do we train well together?
Mhm.
And so for each individual applicant and an artist, you're also kind of sussing out, how did I feel in that training environment you
Absolutely.
know so it's totally great that your chemistry was with NYU. I was going to say, oh, you talked about classical and you're saying like, I thought I was done with the classical. Let's talk
Yeah,
about Shakespeare for a quick moment.
yeah.
Like prior to preparing these two pieces, how much experience would you say you had with Shakespeare? What was your feelings about Shakespeare going into this process? And then maybe we'll talk for a second about our actual sessions and some of the breakthroughs. But like, where were you at with Shakespeare prior to working?
Yeah. I mean, I had some knowledge only because I mean, I think, when I was very, very little, my dad would, and he's just the best man. He would show me productions of like, not only Shakespeare but like Chekhov, and I remember just like watching Uncle Vanya not knowing what's going on, and at the time I couldn't appreciate that. I was watching Midsummer Night's Dream and I didn't have a clue what was happening, even though I thought that I liked Puck because he was a funny little guy that, looks fun, right? And I was just like, I was just like, I didn't understand. I didn't fully appreciate the text. I didn't appreciate Shakespeare, But then, of course, with maturity, with time, you come back around to it. And I think I remember, one thing that really, really helped me is my school just recently started a Shakespeare honors class where kids who it's an English curriculum and kids who are able to or who have a love for Shakespeare are able to take it and you learn, you look at Shakespeare from a literary standpoint but also from an artistic standpoint. So like we would do like page to stage assignments, we would act out scenes, we would talk, we do Socratic seminars. And it was like I had it every single day and my teacher was so supportive. She knew that I was going in and auditioning, so she I'm so fortunate for this, but she like blocked out a small section of time for just me and her to work one on one and to sort of just talk about pieces, which I am so grateful for. And being able to do that and being immersed in like a classroom environment where I already felt comfortable in school, but getting to learn Shakespeare, and that was like the best. That was really helpful. So that was one big breakthrough for me, for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah. You
Yeah.
mentioned her, and I think that's great. Um, with the working of the Shakespeare pieces, whether it was with her or in your own time or with us, was there a moment where you felt like, oh, I just reached a new level of either freedom or personalization or ownership with my classical material? What technique, what can you share about one of the skills you developed with
Yeah.
Shakespeare?
Yeah. Um, Well, I think before I really started to do a deep dive into Shakespeare and I was really working on the pieces, I don't think I really understood what I was saying initially when I first started to work, and I didn't know like the double meanings in some, verse lines. I didn't know what the significance of iambic pentameter meant. Where there's a sudden cutoff, what does that mean? That's there for a reason. Everything is there for a reason. I didn't know that, and it's fine and is what it is. But as soon as I started to like, I just sat down and obviously it's hard to do when you're 17 and you are trying to figure it out on your own, and it's a lot, and you need help and you need guidance through that. And I absolutely did. And what really helped me is when I finally started to just go line by line and break it down with you, and then break it down with my teacher, Miss Sheck, and even with my dad, right? I almost like formed this modern version of some of my pieces, and I kind of worked on that modern version for a bit so that I understood what I was saying in a modern context. And then when I got that, I was able to just do it in Shakespearean verse, and it made sense to me because I knew what I was saying. So that was real tough at the beginning, but then slowly it can be sorted, and there are times where you just want to be like, I don't want to do this anymore, like I just want to go, like I don't I don't need this right now, this is stressful, what the hell. But once you crack it and once you understand the significance of certain, just I don't know, nuances in the text, it's really cool. And I didn't
Totally.
know that until
Totally.
recently. So
Yeah, oh my gosh, I totally am reliving some of those things. I remember one of the exercises we did was like, forget the text, let's just do this like a stand-up comic.
yeah.
Like, use your own words, you like understand the general journey of what the we did with this with Puck, what the general journey and the stories that Puck was telling. So like tell those stories, but like in 2024 stand-up comic fashion.
Yeah,
Like you had a comic that you were, attracted, that you liked,
yeah.
and you kind of imitated him a little bit or whatever. It just sets you free a little bit. And it's not like we ever ended up actually doing it that way.
Mm.
But sometimes you just need that push to like, hey, this can be spaghetti on the wall,
Oh yeah.
you
I
know?
remember one time I was working Puck. I had done it a few times, just for my dad to see, and I wanted his advice too and his critique. And I remember after I did it, he said, "Great, cool. Can you do it as a rap?" And I was like, "Oh, shoot. Okay, why not?" And then I did, and immediately I'm doing like, "Thou speaks the right. I am that merry wanderer of the night." And I was doing it like this rap, almost like this battle. And by the end, it felt good, and it was really really fun, and that sort of like that really helped me like understanding I don't know, just understanding the text through a modern lens.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said. Yeah. And it created more malleability. When we talk
Yeah.
about that word, having the piece be flexible, bending the piece, throwing spaghetti against the wall. You can't be just trying to reach for some version of
Mm-mm.
there's no correct version. The correct version is the version that, like you said, you really know what you're saying every single moment. Just like we do in our real lives. We're not saying something we don't know. Like we're obviously talking with the thoughts we have, and you have to replicate that. And so anyway, really cool. Well, let's talk about, your the initial auditions are done. You're starting to narrow down what schools are still in play. And
Mhm.
um was there anything that happened like between the end of the auditions and the time you got notified? Like what was going through your mind? What communications were happening with some of these schools?
Yeah. That waiting period.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because especially as a regular decision drama major, you see all your friends getting into school around you. You sort of become the only one that hasn't gone to school yet, and you're waiting for that sort of sense of security, which you just don't have, because you're not getting decisions back, and it's hard to wait, and so badly you want to email them and be like, "Hi, just curious, but you know, I think I always knew, it's such a corny phrase, but it's like rejection is redirection and you end up where you're supposed to end up. And it's like honestly that can't be more true. It sounds like a broken record, but it really is the truth. It's like I felt secure knowing that I felt really good about my NYU audition. I felt good about my PACE audition. I really liked the people I were talking to, and there were a lot of good omens that I encountered throughout the days in which those auditions occurred, and and that really helped me knowing you did a good job. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen, but you just have to be proud of the fact that you did well. So there's that. More than anything else, there's at least that. And if you don't end up going to college, re audition in a year and start working professionally, whatever,
Man,
But just, you did a good job. So just sit with that, and then whatever happens, happens.
such a great mindset. Really. I mean, honestly, like you got to keep your center in this otherwise potentially chaotic, atmosphere. And it's the same with the entertainment industry, obviously, with auditions. Get used to rejection when you don't expect it, you know, getting the callback or getting the role when you don't expect, all the good news and bad news comes kind of thrown at you in this chaotic maelstrom
Yeah.
of, and if you don't have some level of self-talk that is healthy,
Yeah.
you just kind of become at, you know, a result of that chaotic environment as opposed to someone who can maintain some level of setting your sail in the right direction no
Yeah.
matter how torrential the waves are. Okay, I'm getting carried away with images.
Yeah. But
um
that's it. Yeah.
no anyway, when did you find out?
I found out, it's funny, I found out about Marymount was rolling decision, so that means I found out within 2 weeks after I auditioned. So that didn't have like a specific date. I just knew that I was going to find out 2 weeks after, the day. So that I found out and I got in and I was super, super excited. I was like, okay, I got into a school and I know that I could at least be going to school in New York. That's great. Awesome. Um, and then after that, I believe I found out about UNCSA. I think I was actually in New York. And I was there actually to take a dance class. And I had the portal open and I got rejected. And I was like, all right, let me go take a dance class. And then I went and took a dance class. And that dance class really helped me, you know, let out some angry energy and let out some frustration. And I guess just forget about it. And then after that, I think was, oh God, I don't even know. I think after that was Pace maybe, and I got in there, and that was a huge top choice. That was really big for me because I loved Pace. I loved the people. They were so like they were really, really, really just cool about everything. Super chill, like keeping it low key. Like, listen, this is an audition, but at the end of the day, you're just here to learn something. So just take that for what it is. And they were like, oh, great, okay, cool. So I think Pace was the next one that I found out about, which was great. And then I think like a few days after that, I found out about Carnegie Mellon. And when I didn't get into Carnegie Mellon, that was kind of a blow for me a bit because I really felt like that could have been, I guess, a school that I could have gone to because I got past the pre screen. I got a callback in the room. I had all the faculty work with me. And I was like, oh, this could be really cool. And all of a sudden, it's rejection. And it's like, okay, that hurts a little bit. It sucks, but it's a little harder to move on, but let's still kind of move through it a little bit. And then the final one was NYU, was the last one. And I remember that because you get like a little email on your phone that basically says your application status like has been updated. And I was actually in rehearsal because right now I'm for my school directing a one act for like this one act play festival that happens at our school every single year. And I was working with some of my actors and we were figuring out different stuff, right? And I got this like bing, like little notification on my phone. I look at it and it's NYU and I just go, no. Just gonna focus on this right now, and then I worked with them for an hour. We finished up rehearsal. And then I got home. I was like, okay, this is gonna be fine. And then I clicked, and there was no confetti or anything, which was kind of scary. But then I saw congratulations and immediately freaked out. And that was just like, oh, thank God. And that was like the big triumph for me.
Oh my gosh. So you were at home. Were your parents with you?
Yeah, they were. They were with me. They were they were standing back. And I remember I got accepted, and like immediately afterwards, we were celebrating, and they were like, "We were so happy because we bought we bought some champagne to celebrate, and we were just gonna like sip it somewhere
Oh.
just in case it didn't go, you know, it didn't go to plan." I was like, "Yeah." So that was really, really, it was emotional, and it was really cool,
That
So
is awesome. That is awesome. Very special, very cool, man. Well, let's wrap it up. This has been
cool.
super valuable. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Your voice is unique and it's so much gold in your journey. And I know
Again.
a lot of people relate to it and are appreciative. So thank you for sharing. You know where these yeah. These people are you know where these people are. These people are serious about becoming better actors. They're
Uh-huh.
serious about, getting into inspiring environments like drama schools and obviously committed to the process. So they're going on their own journey.
Yeah.
What's something that now that you're looking back, actually, even though it's really fresh, like what's something that you would say to next year's applicants in terms of like, keep this in mind?
Mm. Ooh, it's tough because so bad I want to say don't overthink it, just go in, experience it, and remember it's a process and just have fun, right? Like, so badly, that's all I want to say, and that is true, but at the same time, you are going to overthink it. Of course, you're going to second guess it. Like, it's a hard thing not to because it's a big deal. It's college. Like, it seems like this huge thing. And, I guess I would say, and I'm still learning this for myself. I'm still trying to figure this out. But like, accept every piece of it, the goods, the good, the bad, the in between, because who knows, you might be able to take that memory and use it, if not for the piece that you're doing, but for a future piece. So just experience all of it. Don't ignore your emotions. Don't push them down. Don't try to say that you're fine when you're not fine. I journal every night in order to sort of just, it's the last thing I do every night, and it helps me really stay in tune with myself, and it lets me be honest with myself. So that's really it. Be honest with yourself. If you're not okay, you're not okay. Fine. But that doesn't mean you have to give up. That just means it's not a good day. It's the storm cloud over your head. I had callbacks for this black box show that my high school is doing. I bombed. I bombed every callback. Oh my God. Like we had 4 days to prepare and I had like 9 callbacks to do. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This might work, and I tried it, bombed. And that was hard, especially after school. And I was like, okay, now I have to just be okay with the fact that I bombed. And even now, looking back at a few hours ago, even talking through this has helped me realize and reconnect why I love doing what I do so much, why I love acting so much. So I would just say, be honest with yourself. If something doesn't go well, be honest about that, and be honest about the fact that you love it, and figure out why you love it. I know I'm saying so much, but it's like just really, if it just in like a few words, it's like be honest with yourself, and if you're confused, you're lost, you don't know what to do, just think about why you love it, why you love your pieces, and why you love to act. Like
That
that.
is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Really great, man. Thank you, Cooper. And
Of course, thank you.
so excited. I mean, obviously you and I are in touch. Glad you're in New York. I know you really
Yeah.
wanted to be in New York, and it's just
Same.
gonna be a blast, man. You're gonna have a great time.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. All right, we'll talk soon.
Bye bye.